All right, so today we're going to talk about the new oscillators feature that came with the MPC 3.9 firmware update, and it can be used on the MPC Key 37, MPC Key 61, MPC 1 Plus, all the next gens, all the XLs, so all of that. So you just have to make sure to update your firmware and you're good to go. And also, before getting started, I encourage you to go to the Akai Professional site and go to the download section and download the free preset expansion pack for oscillators. Okay, you have to download that to your computer and then transfer it over into your MPC. Takes about 5 minutes to do that, so not a big deal. You've done it with, I'm sure, many of your other expansions, same deal. You'll see why in a few minutes. I recommend to do that. Okay, so what is an oscillator? Everybody's talking about these oscillators. It's basically allowing your MPC to become a full-fledged synthesizer. Okay, you've heard that term synthesizer. I've been around long enough where I remember the Yamaha DX7 when it came out in the 80s, and that was like a big deal because it had this clean, pure sound that came from, I believe, FM synthesis, frequency modulation synthesis. And what it was doing is it was taking basic waveforms, audio waveforms that are known in physics, and using those waveforms and combining them and changing the envelope of them and the frequency and the pitch, etc., to create these warm analog sounds. All right. The term oscillation comes from the fact that these frequency waves, these waves or these signals are oscillating. All right. There are 4 or 5 basic waves, I think, like a sine wave, a sawtooth wave, a triangle wave, a square wave, and probably several other ones. And these waves, like the sine wave, they oscillate up and down, and they have a phase. And I'm sure you've gone over all of those in your physics 101 classes. And so those audio waves create sound that we manipulate. And that's where the term synthesis comes from, right? A synthesizer. We are synthesizing or building sound using these basic waveforms, right? Now, this new feature is basically taking, the internal computing power of your MPC, and it's allowing it to create these waves and to manipulate these waves, right, without having need of a plugin. So that is, we call that, if I recall correctly, like onboard synthesis, right? So the synthesizing power is on board. It's internal to the machine. And that gives you a lot of creative freedom, right? And but this is where I differ in opinion to a lot of other people, is that you can easily go down a rabbit hole for many hours and many days playing around with the synthesis of sounds, making your own sounds. If that's your thing, that's totally cool. I did it back in the 80s and the 90s. I did a lot of my own wave synthesis. But it takes a lot of time, but it's good basics to learn, and that's fine. However, if you're looking for sounds, a lot of the plugins, which is, I thought about it. I don't know how to explain the difference between the oscillator that's been embedded now in the MPC versus a plugin. A plugin, I guess, is like it's a patch or a software program that gets inserted into the MPC, and you can switch plugins, right? So it's not permanently in your instrument. But the instrument plugins that the MPC came with, right? And so let me show you. Let's go to sounds here. Okay, so the instrument plugins that your MPC came with are pretty much in themselves synthesizers, right? So if you go to TubeSynth or Hype or Baseline or Electric, all of these allow you to manipulate the, the building block waves of the sounds that are making up their presets. And there's already tons of presets with these plugins. So there's just so much choice in terms of sounds you can use and manipulate. And one of the great things about these plugins is their interface. Okay, they have fantastic user interfaces that make it very intuitive to manipulate sound and to create sound. And usually it's building off of some of their existing presets. All right. So, like for example, Fabric, right? So what the Fabric has just so many, such a rich collection of sounds, like, choirs and there you go, oscillators and guitar and bass sounds and pads and strings. It's just, there's hundreds and hundreds of sounds there. So I guess what I'm getting at is, why would you go and spend hours and hours trying to build your own sound when they are readily available for you, right? And it's, it's not like you're taking the easy way out or anything by using them. Those sounds are there for you. And so, but again, on the other side of the coin, using an oscillator to build your sounds can, if you really know how to use it and carve out your sound, it can be very powerful. You can get the exact sound that you hear in your head. You can layer it with a drum hit or another key group note or whatever. But in my opinion, I would rather just dig through the presets of these incredible synths that are already available, or I should say synth plugins that are already available for us. Okay. But that being said, I'm still going to take you through the oscillator. So what I played for you in the beginning was from the oscillator feature, and I started off using one of the presets from the preset expansion pack that I downloaded for free that I mentioned earlier. And but let me take you a little bit through it, and I'll try to explain to the best of my ability all the features, but you're going to have to play around with it and discover it. And it's only by, changing things around that you'll discover, for example, an envelope, an amplitude envelope with the attack, sustain, decay, and release. It's really, you have to play with those to really understand how an envelope works. Okay. All right. So let's dive into the oscillator feature. All right. So how do we get to the oscillator feature? Two ways you can do it. You can open a new drum track, or you can open a key group track. When there's a key group track, the sound is going to be played via keyboard or the pads or an external MIDI controller. When it's in the drum kit, then it's going to be, your sound will be layered with, for example, your drum sounds, if you so choose. Today what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new track, a key group track. Let's do that. And then, typically you would browse for a key group, or you can create a key group from a sample that you have using that little piano icon that you have when you're looking at a sample. It's usually up here in the right hand corner. But in this case, what we're going to do is you're going to go to edit, and then so sometimes it'll default to global. You want to go to samples, and now it's a sample / oscillator. Right now sample is selected, and you have 8 layers of samples. And then if you go to oscillator, and then it's going to default to a what's called the warm sine wave. So you see it's just like a pulse note. It's from this sine wave that you can build your sounds, etc. The oscillator doesn't have to be a sine wave. You can select, so if we hit this warm sine here, double tap that, and you have all of the, for example, here you have basic waveforms. So you have sine, square, saw wave, and a pulse wave. So why don't we just go through those. This is a digital sine wave, saw square, digital saw, and a pulse. Okay, and let's see what else we got here, just for fun. Advanced waveforms. Nah, let's go to wavetables. Classic oscillator, and then let's just scroll through this. Hold on. I don't think it worked. Wavetables, classic oscillators. There we go. I really like square wave sounds. So again, these are raw, naked, oscillating sounds made up of sound waves, all right? So pretty boring stuff. So it takes a lot to shape these into what you want. So what we're going to do is that we're going to, in a few minutes, we'll go to a preset and listen to some of those. But first, I'm going to try to take you through some of these menus that you have and show you how we can, manipulate the sounds. All right, so when we go from the samples/oscillator page, let's go back to global. And global is, similar to all of your other global pages. You can change the tuning of the key group. So there we go, changing the semitunes. You also have fine control, you have level, you can pan left or right. Okay. You can determine your high key, your low key, whether you want to be polyphonic or monophonic. You can create mute groups, etc. Sample play, note on. So that's because it's a key group, so you want, when you hit it, you want the note on and then released when you let go. So that's kind of the basic stuff there. And then let's go to the samples oscillations page. Again, here as you select whether you want the sound source to be a sample or if you want the sound source to be an oscillator, which is the sound wave. And so let's keep it on oscillator. Again, you could change the tone here, semitones or fine tone adjustment. You can decide what phase of the wave you want to start at. So usually it starts at kind of 0. If you're talking about XY axis, the wave starts at the 0 intersect of the XY. But you can change the phase for whatever reason. Probably if you're layering waves, that's when it makes sense. And by the way, you can layer up to 8 different waves. Position, I'm not too sure exactly what it does. It looks like it's expanding the valleys and the peaks of the wave itself. So it's changing the waveform, and that will obviously change how you hear it. Okay. Crossfade, not sure yet what that does. And so then you can adjust this for each of your layers. And then let's go to filters. So filter is what it says. You can filter your sound. What's really nice about having an MPC is that you have the touch screen capability, and you can just take, this little red dot and move it around. Let's keep it soft. And then you have a second filter here. I can bring this out here. And then you can blend this, you know, between the two filters. That's really cool. Here it's showing you the filter envelope. Okay, we'll get to envelopes in a second. And so, you know, basically you'll see that when I move this with my finger, you can see the different parameters changing here, like the resonance, the cutoff, the output, etc. So, you know, you can do multi-dimensional adjustments of your parameters just by moving around with your finger. So that's really cool. Same thing with the second. And then you can decide if you want to hear the filters in parallel or in serial mode. Not sure exactly how that works again. Like I said, a lot of this is new for me, okay? I'm just discovering it as I go along. Velocity sensitivity, this is cool because you can, you know, depending on how hard you hit the key, you can have the filter cutoff change. For example, let's say the filter cutoff, we wanted to change when we hit it at this velocity. You see it's very different when I hit it hard or soft. Okay, that could be useful to play around with. Filter depth, same thing. Okay, it's a crappy sound right now, but you know, I'm just going through all the different features. And then the amplitude envelopes. So amplitude is basically the volume of your sound. And so we have the attack, hold, decay, sustain, release. These are the different parameters that make up your envelope. So think of a sound as having a envelope or a profile, if you will. All right, and that profile is made up of the attack when you first hear that sound, when you know the vibrations hit the air, and then the last parameter is release. So how long that release goes, and we can again drag these out. Let's drag out these guys here so you could see. I can give you examples. So right now the release is super long. Let's bring that down. The attack is, bring this up. Okay, so you can play around with this for hours and hours. So there's a hold button here that I guess it, you know, sustains it. The best way to learn how to use these envelopes is to use a preset sound that you like and then go and study what envelopes they're using. That's what probably this oscillator feature is the best thing for, is to learn how to create sounds and waves by using the presets and seeing how they made the envelopes. Anyways, you can make an envelope for your amplitude, for filtering, for the pitch. You know, it could change pitch. I don't know. Let's try that out. Not doing anything for me. Probably I'm not doing it correctly. Okay, in any case, so you have, again, you have your amplitude envelope, filter envelope, pitch envelope, and auxiliary envelopes. I'm not sure. I guess you can shape some kind of auxiliary signal that's coming and mixing with your wave. I don't know. To be determined, right? And then you have your LFOs over here. And you have a couple of more things. So the LFO is, so it stands for low frequency oscillator. And if I'm not mistaken, LFOs are typically used to modulate your overall sound. And the best analogy I could think of is pretend you have a sound in your head, right? And then imagine that sound riding a wave in the ocean, okay? And that sound is going to change as it's riding the wave. And the low frequency oscillator is that wave, and it's basically infusing itself into your sound and changing how it sounds. I just like to think of it as your sound is riding a wave. Okay, so let's try it and see what it gives us. So I have this sound. Let me just go back, and I'm going to make these envelopes more straightforward. Okay, let's just use that for now. Go to LFO1 and let's see if we can modulate this. Okay, the delay, I'm going to leave that. Let's see if we can change the rate. So you see, as I increase the frequency, you have more of your peaks and valleys. Let's increase that some more. Increase the level. Okay, not doing anything. All right, so I figured it out. When this wheel to LFO1 was on, I wasn't hearing anything, and I think when you turn the oscillation wheel here, you don't see it on the screen, but that's where the effect is going. But if I turn this to 0, now I can hear the low frequency oscillator working. So watch as I change the rate here. Okay, and we can play with the sine waves. Sawtooth is always cool. That's a reverse sawtooth. All right, and so so basically, the low frequency oscillator, it doesn't create a sound itself, but it modulates the sound that you have already created. So basically, it's, I guess it's a soundless wave within a wave. I don't know. Yeah, I'm really destroying this tutorial, but hopefully you guys know what I mean. I think you do. All right. What else we got here? So I haven't really gone over some of these other things. The modulation matrix already existed in previous versions, and I'm still kind of figuring that out. Basically, it allows you to modulate different things like the amplitude, the panning, via a modulation wheel or velocity or things like that. But I need to, before I speak about that, I need to really dig into that more and learn more about it. Okay, let's just skip over the rest. I think that's kind of for basics. That's a pretty good start for you guys to play around with. Don't forget that you can layer different oscillators as well. You can layer with samples as well. So you can layer 1 could be an oscillating wave, and layer 2 can be a sample, etc. So you can, I guess, mix and match these. Okay, let's go back to the main page, and let's go to a key group that I already had here. And I downloaded this from, if we go to my expansions, here I have the MPC core oscillators. And this core oscillators, it has a lot of these pre-made, pretty cool bass sounds here. Then we have bell sounds. So all of these are presets that are using multiple waves to make sounds. You have, and that, you know, that's how electronic drums first started as well. So it's pretty cool. They have drum kits, and so definitely go and get that. It's a free expansion pack for the oscillators, and don't forget that when you do transfer the this oscillator pack to the MPC, you have to go to preferences and you have to select. There's some wavetable that you have to download from your preferences. You have to activate it, so don't forget to do that. It's in the preferences. Okay, so I selected this instrument pad strings from the expansion pack, and without any effects, this is what it sounds like. Very nice sine waves, smooth. Okay, and then with the effects, so it came with Spring Reverb. I added Air Reverb Pro and Air Flavor Pro, and it will give something like this. Beautiful. Sounds very, very nice and smooth. You can explore all the sounds, but let's go into the sound and see, you know, how it's made real quick. So if I go to edit, you could see they're using 7 layers. Okay, they have a digital saw, 2 digital saws, 3 digital saws, a pulse wave, 2 pulse waves, a square wave, and you know, it's crazy. So let's just look at the digital saw. Let's look at this filter envelope they're using here. It's crazy, you know. This is basically saying where the cutoff is, the resonance, the output, etc. Velocity, sensitivity. Let's see if I play with the blend, what happens. Interesting. Oh, I like that. Gives it a human feel. Wow. By the way, if you don't have a keyboard, MPC key 37, too bad for you. No, just kidding. If you don't have a keyboard, you can use your pads. Right now I have it on chords settings. Beautiful. Okay. Let's see what else they have here. So they have filter envelopes, amplitude envelopes, filter envelope, pitch envelope. So it looks like they're mostly using the filter. You know, they have a smooth attack, a little bit of sustain, and then a smooth release. You know, that's kind of how to look at it. And then, you know, you can play around with these. Right, let's see if we can do undo. Yeah, you can undo as well. Okay, and don't forget that each layer, each oscillator has all of their own filters, right? So you can get incredibly complex, incredibly fast. All right. Let's see if they're using low frequency oscillators. They are. Again, very subtle. But it sounds pretty cool. Let's just explore some of the other. Let's go back to global sample. I guess we go back to main, and let's go to Double click on this guy. Actually, a better way to do it is once you're in your main page, you can go to sounds over here, hit sounds, and then go to user expansions, and where is it? No, that's Kegroup tracks. User expansions, here it is. Okay, MPC core oscillators. And then let's just go and pick, I don't know, some pads. Here's some pads, okay. Let's do mellow cup. Very soft. Let's see, G-Dog. What's G-Dog? Very complex sound there. Akai. Whoa. Interesting. Breathy choir. Let's do Zans. And don't forget to press, try different velocities when you're playing around with these oscillators, because there's a lot of velocity layers built into the sound. So very cool presets. It's nice to be able to use these presets because you don't have to spend a lot of time. Yeah, I really don't like the instrument sounds they make, like a ballad piano or the neo whirly. I'd much rather use Fabric or a TubeSynth or something like that. Speaking of which, I have something set up here. TubeSynth. This is using their sound called Super Smooth. And here's what I was talking about before, the user interface. So again, you have envelopes, you have LFOs, but the user interface is so much more intuitive with these plugins. I just prefer to use it. And here's their oscillator page, right? And the TubeSynth, I just love it. It sounds beautiful. You could change the filters. Let's change the low pass cutoff. Put some drive. Let's try some other sounds. Tremble. Cool stuff. So again, let's wrap it up here. The oscillators is a really cool thing to have. You can now claim that your MPC, even your MPC-1, it's a full-fledged synthesizer. You can synthesize any waveform you want, combine it however you want, up to 8 layers, add effects. You can go crazy, and you're going to learn how to manipulate sound. It's fantastic. However, if you're making a beat or a song and you need to, people always talk about their workflow and speed and things like that, and you don't want to go down a rabbit hole, then just use, the sounds that you have already, either in your expansion packs or your plugins or whatever. Hype is another one. Selena, Fabric. All of these have just any sound you can imagine. Just go dig through it. Do some crate digging through through the files here. But at the same time, as you get more comfortable with the oscillators, you might want to add a layer to one of your samples, right? And you might want to trigger a bass drum with a low frequency sine wave to make it sound a little bit more electronic or something. So again, the possibilities are infinite. And so definitely check it out. I'm not saying don't check it out. Definitely check it out. I think it's getting a little more hype than it deserves. I'm going to get a lot of comments for that one because the synths that already the plugins that we already have that give us synthesis capability are so rich and powerful already that having these basic oscillator waves is like, okay, that's cool to have it. It's now part of the guts of the MPC, but it's you're going to spend time making a kind of a mediocre wave until you get really good. Once you get really good at creating sounds, yeah, you'll be able to make any sound that comes into your head. But when you're looking for that specific pad or lead sound, you have a plethora of possibilities at your fingertips here. So definitely experiment with it. Let me know if you like it. Let me know if you think it's worth it. I think it's one of those things where it's good to have if you need it, but it's not necessarily something that's going to make or break your beats. Definitely not. I think one of the more important and overlooked features in the recent upgrades, I think it was with 3.7, is the ability to loop a sample on your drum kit pad. And I'm going way off track here, but let me see if I can, yeah, here it is. So I have this sample of a shaker right here. You see it going. And before it was like a one shot and it would stop when it reaches the end. Now I can let it loop around and play my beat on it. And then when I want to stop it, I just hit it again and it stops. And you couldn't do looping of a sample like that before on the MPC, and now you can do it, and it's really straightforward. When you go to edit, like when I'm on that sample, I go to edit, and let me go to global here. When your sample play, usually it's a one shot, right? So instead of being on one shot, note off, note on, now you have a choice of toggle. So you could toggle that sample on and off. And when you have it on the toggle option, and then you go to your samples edit page, you turn your pad loop on. Usually that's off. You turn that on, which it's funny because that pad loop button was there before, but it didn't really do anything. It didn't make, at least for me, it never, I thought it should make my pad sample loop, but it never worked. But now with that toggle feature, this button works. So now when I hit my sample, it's when it reaches the end, it's going to loop back around. Okay. And you can also reverse it. So when it reaches the end, it's going to go backwards. So just kind of, add some randomness to it. And then when you're done, you hit it and it stops. So when you're finger drumming, it's really, really useful. Sometimes you want to finger drum over a loop that's going, and then you might want to stop that loop. So you just hit it because it's on toggle mode and it stops it. Anyways, I'm going way off track here. So let me know what you thought about this oscillation tutorial. Again, I'm just discovering it as well. I know a little bit about synthesis. I'm not an expert, but hopefully you kind of got the idea of what the oscillators are all about. All right. So yeah, if you found this helpful, please like and subscribe, as that will help my channel get to more people. It will also let me know that my content is useful to you guys, and I'll make more of these videos. And I'm also going to be making more songwriting videos as well, so stay tuned for those. And I really appreciate you guys those of you who are following some of my songwriting stuff. You can check out my website at manukiansongwriter.com. You can also check out my Spotify and Instagram pages, and all of those links are in the channel description. All right. Peace, everybody. Have a good one, and talk to you soon.